Spending a week alone in an isolated cabin for the Christmas holidays certainly seemed like a good idea at the time, and it was a welcome break from the city. It always made more sense for me to spend time alone, especially during the holidays. And without any immediate family, I would usually travel somewhere secluded. After a few days of staring out the same window, the reality of not having any internet, TV or contact with the outside world really started to sink in. To make matters worse, even the radio stopped working, and I couldn't get a single station. The only thing left to do at that point was to do my best to stay warm and avoid the bitter cold outside. The crackling sound of the warm fireplace did offer some relief, and I had no trouble sleeping at the cabin, at least until the events of that night began to unfold. Hearing those wild dogs barking out there in the snow didn't mean that much at first, but then I remembered something. A few years ago, while living in Brazil, the neighborhood dogs would sometimes bark and howl like crazy during the night. Nobody knew why for a long time until one day I found out what it was. It turned out to be a black horse that would sometimes escape from the ranch nearby and wander aimlessly through the streets at night. Nothing particularly sinister about that, but the dogs knew when there was something out of place. Something that wasn't supposed to be there. I waited for the barking to stop and then went over to the fireplace to drink some tea, before finally turning in for the night. But little did I know, Christmas Eve was far from over. My curiosity was always so diligent, suppressing any underlying sense of fear that would have otherwise prevented me from doing something careless, like going outside to get a closer look. But I just had to know. I had to know what I saw through that window. The immediate vicinity didn't really present anything out of the ordinary, but I was surprised to see that there were no footprints or any tracks left in the snow, and it seemed even quieter than usual. I did consider the possibility that I was hallucinating, but it certainly felt real enough, and the harsh cold was a fierce reminder that I was awake and fully aware of my surroundings. It was only when I shifted my attention beyond the tree line that I noticed a strange light gleaming just shy of the horizon. I thought it might have just been the northern lights or some other weather phenomenon, but I still felt compelled to go deeper into the forest, and I still remember how eerily quiet it was. After walking a fair distance, it felt like I could never seem to catch up with the light, until suddenly it disappeared. Just like that, it was gone, and I found myself standing before a threshold of thick forest shrouded in complete darkness, with only my flashlight to guide me back to the cabin. The uncanny feeling that I had been intentionally lured away from the cabin didn't go unnoticed, nor did the disturbing realization that there was something moving in the trees up ahead. Whatever it was seemed keen to be left alone, and certainly didn't belong there in the forest. Fortunately, by that time, my inherent fear of the unknown finally outweighed my curious endeavor. However, my timely retreat was interrupted by the sound of those wild dogs again, which was quickly followed by chaos and commotion that seemed to engulf the entire forest around me, as I witnessed huge flocks of birds scatter across the sky before flying away. Soon enough, the forest was once again plunged into an eerie silence as I acknowledged a complete absence of any wildlife, while heading back to the cabin, even though I was still totally oblivious as to what had ensued. At least that was the case until I stumbled upon the chilling reality of that night. I later learned that a large avalanche had swept through the entire valley, destroying everything in its wake. I was fortunate to be alive, but to this day I am still not quite sure how much of it I can truly attribute to luck. What I still can't wrap my head around is how a few hours after the incident, when I arrived at the nearest town, it was already the day after Christmas, so there was a whole 24 hours that I simply couldn't account for. Perhaps there was a greater force at work that night, and I don't expect anyone to believe me. I wouldn't believe it myself, but it did open my mind to the notion that everything happens for a reason, and that strange bump in the night might just be your guardian angel.